Welcome again, everyone. Data is very, very important and paramount to everything that's going on. And even though we see things like ChatGPT out there, and maybe next year, ChatGPT will just have this meeting for us. But for now, data is really king, and data is really important for us. Whether we're working in the life science industry, in the chemical industry, or really any industry where we're doing this research and development, it all hinges around that data in the data-centric environment. And these are the key pieces now that are feeding a lot of the advanced things that we're doing. However, as we all know, where we are in really enabling that data is still something of a journey, and it's something that has really evolved over the last decade. It's something that we're all evolving with, but there's still a lot of barriers, right, in how we put all that data together. And for those of you who have been here a long time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those that are new, right, this is something that I'm sure you're seeing within your companies and organizations as well. But we're spending a lot of time really putting this data together, connecting it, and even more so now as we're looking at that data at scales that are really unprecedented, that we've never looked at before. And so, within our industries, we talk a lot about things like FAIR data, right? And FAIR makes things findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But what it really doesn't do is it doesn't give you that blueprint on how to do that. It doesn't really tell you, these are ways that folks have thought about this. These are the pieces of data that we really want to need, that we really want to standardize, to interchange. And so that's really where the data standard side comes in, and really what Allotrope's doing, and where that comes into the picture as well. It's one thing to get that data and make it findable and accessible. And I know for some folks on their journey, that's the most important piece right now, and that's the most important part. But once you get there, right, how do you take that data and interchange it in a way that works across all of our ecosystems, right? Because it's very rare that you're the only person in that ecosystem. I can look out over this room right now and see dozens of people that are all from different companies, right? And we're all working together with the same data. And so that's really where Allotrope comes in. So Allotrope, over the years, has evolved a framework of 4 products. The first ones to be created were the Allotrope data format, the Allotrope Foundation ontologies. And so the data format's a file-based format that lets folks take all of their scientific data, put it together in a single context with the associated metadata for that data itself. And really the next piece that came out were the Allotrope Foundation ontologies. Once we got into this, we realized very quickly that to have a standard, you need to have a standard way of talking about things. And so, you might think about a controlled vocabulary, but the ontology lets us take those standardized concepts to the next level, link them together in a way that then computers can start to infer over them and make sense of what's going on there. From there, then, we developed the Allotrope data models. So Allotrope data models are semantic web-based models that represent the data that we're working with. And what we realized there was that some data can be a complex web of interactions. Some data there we can try to condense down into a way that's easier to work with. And so from there, we created what are called tabular data models. And ultimately, our newest addition here, the Allotrope Simple Model. So a few years ago, we realized that to make it easy to start this journey, it would be much easier for folks to have a common data format that's really easy to work with, that's something that's universal, that anyone can pick up, work with and use. And so that's really where the simple models came from. The simple models are JSON-based, so if you've done any programming within the last 15 years, your programming language supports JSON, right? It's the standard of how everything works. It's the standard of how you logged into WebEx this morning. I will guarantee that under the hood some JSON was passed around. Well, actually, Cisco's a little old, maybe it's still XML, but it's probably JSON, right? And it does everything from letting you sign in and check in online to get your bags here today to enabling us to be able to interchange data scientifically. And so the Allotrope Simple Models are the pieces that really let us do that in a way that's simple and easy to use. And so over time we've created these different data models, and a large portion of what we do here is not just creating those software pieces, but really the community that allows us to create these models. And so over the last few years, we've created, I think, we're up to, I counted 57. So I think this is what we have on the website. A lot of these have been updated or created recently. So anything here that you see in bold or with a star after it, right? These are things that we've created just within the last 2 releases. So either this past March or at the end of last year. And so the Allotrope catalog has 57 different domains. And when I first started coming to Allotrope meetings regularly, maybe around 2018, 2017 or so, the big question was, does it support my technique? Does it support what I'm doing in the lab? And I think I'm really proud to be able to say here that we cover 57 different domains. And this really does cover a large portion of what folks are doing in the lab. And these are always growing, right? They're growing and they're improving as well. We've had a lot of models, for instance, liquid chromatography, which was one of the first models that we created. We're still creating new versions of that, right? New methods there to be able to update it with what our community feedback is of what folks need to be able to use in their standards. And so this is work that's ongoing through our community. The modeling working group that you might hear some mentions of over the next few days is where a lot of that happens. So bi-weekly, Ben and Amnon lead that group through creating all the different new models there, and really allow us to keep expanding, not just on what one of our companies thinks is sort of the important pieces there, but what we all have agreed together, right, should be the standard. The ontologies that I mentioned, are the backbone of what we do here. And I think it's easy to dismiss the ontologies as sort of being sort of a side product, perhaps, or something that's sort of something that is a port of a lot of the other pieces. And what's true, that's the base of what we do. It's actually a really important piece and can be really useful on its own, right? We found with a lot of the stories that we hear from folks, in different organizations, that the foundation ontologies can be a great way to get Allotrope started within your companies, right? A lot of folks out there are just looking for these ontologies, looking for ways to standardize how we name things, how we refer to things. And even if your company may not be using some of the data models, using the ontologies that we have here is a great way to get started. And we have a number of different ways that you can do that. We have our Perl server, our persistent URL server for folks that are advanced that know exactly what to do with the Perl server. But if you don't, it's really easy now to find Allotrope's ontologies. So Amnon and Ben have been doing a lot of work as well on getting the ontologies out there. And so we're on a number of different services now. BioPortal is one. It's also available on OAuth, the ontology lookup service, Ontobe, and also is a download. So there's a thesaurus that you can go and you can download from the Allotrope website that will list out every term, the definitions for it, right? And makes that a nice, easy way to see the entire breadth of what's being covered in the ontologies. Now, of course, the ontologies don't exist in a vacuum, and they're not the comprehensive ontology of everything everywhere all at once, which was a great film if you guys saw that. But what we want to talk about here over the next few days, and we'll have a couple of discussions about it, mostly on day 2 tomorrow, is how do we use those ontologies in context, right? How do they work together with other ontologies and other ways that folks are thinking about their data as well? The last piece I wanted to mention is what I mentioned before, the simple models that are really around leveraging this JSON. And so you can see an example right here. It's very simple, very easy to use, but it's still validated, it's still standardized. So you can run a JSON schema parser over this and validate that data to make sure that it is standardized in a way that reflects the Allotrope simple models that are underlying it. And we're pleased to announce that what the Foundation's been able to accomplish over just the last several months is that the Allotrope simple models are now open to all. So just like our ontologies, the simple models are freely available for folks to use. And for folks that are interested in that, you can go to the website here on our website, allotrope.org/ASM, and it'll talk about how those models can be used. We have a tri-licensing model, which sounds a little complicated, but what we really wanted to do was to make sure that we gave our community the flexibility to use the ontologies along with the simple models in a way that suits them best. And so there are different sort of gradations there, if you will, between just using them versus being able to extend them versus being able to work with them directly. But this is something that I think we're really proud of. The Allotrope Foundation ontologies have been open sourced for several years, right, and have been freely available, and we've seen a lot of use there in a lot of different areas. And so we're really hoping to see the same thing with the simple models as well. And so I think that brings us to sort of where we are today, which is thinking about data standards not just as a disconnected set of these different technologies, but really as a set of technologies that work together that are not just sort of an accomplishment in and of themselves, but really serve to focus on how we move forward together as a community. And so the data standards that one might choose, right, are partially established by the technical requirements, but but really ultimately have to serve the business use cases and create the value that we need to see within our organizations. And so, over the next few days, especially tomorrow with our session for our Allotrope Foundation community, our members and our APN members, really to dive into this and understand, how can we take the different tools that we have here and put them together, in a way that doesn't just create these sort of technology products, but helps us to really solve these problems, right? And these problems have evolved, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk here. These problems have really evolved in the last decade. When we were really thinking about how do we store data in files, how do we transfer it around the file system. Nowadays everyone's doing everything in the cloud, and so we're putting things into large databases. Maybe they're semantic graph databases, but the consumers of this data too have also grown as well. And so we're thinking not just about how do you model that data at rest or model it in a way that you can come back and look at it in 2 decades, in response to any questions, but how can we enable the use of this data with folks that might have never actually looked at a mass spectrometer in their lives, right? But are now using this and combining it with a bunch of other data coming from a number of different techniques in the laboratory to be able to enable the next round of machine learning, right? And so where I think we're really focusing as a community is around how do we promote the standards that we have and the tools and techniques we've created to really solve problems. And so talking a lot about how do we implement it, how have folks been implementing it, how do we want to implement it, and then how can we use it ultimately and integrate it with what we're doing within our own organizations. And so, as I keep mentioning, Allotrope's really a community, right? And our Allotrope community has been growing and is really a vibrant community, not just the folks in the biopharmaceutical companies, which is where we started, but also with folks in chemistry companies and our Allotrope partner network that has grown to include instrument vendors, folks that are creating software that enable what we do, academics, government groups as well. And so we have a wide variety of different folks represented. So I think just real quick to mention a few things around our community. For folks that are new that might not be aware, sort of how Allotrope's organized. This is one of the common questions we get. Allotrope is led by a board of directors. So the Allotrope Foundation members elect up to 2 folks to be part of the board of directors. A number of those folks are in the room today. So they're led by an executive committee, which includes myself, Janet Cheatham, Gong Zhu, and Vinny Antonucci. And so from here then, we work together very closely with the Allotrope Partner Network, who are basically the folks that sort of sit, I guess literally across the table from us today, but are very much involved, integrated in what's going on. And I think over the years, the partner network has really been a key piece of what we do here at Allotrope. And, from everything from guiding strategy to working on modeling and even individual entries in individual data models. We have our product team, so we have 2 employees here from Allotrope, Ben and Amnon, who just introduced themselves. They do basically all things technical, for the group. And then we have a number of different groups that we work with. Some are contracted out, some are service providers for us, principally around technical support, maintenance, and governance. And some of our technical working groups as well, which we'll hear a few updates from tomorrow. And also have a joint deep dive session technically on Thursday as well. And so our modeling work group, as I mentioned, we also have a couple working groups that are specific to different modeling techniques and domains, namely for chromatography and mass spectrometry. We'll hear from those as well. And so from there, I think let's turn our vision to what we're going to do over the next few days. So today is going to be presentations from folks in our community. And I'm pleased to say that we have a great variety of talks that are going to line up. Some of these will be remote from folks all across the globe. Some of them will be from folks here in the room with us today. And we'll do our best to get WebEx working in overtime to try to make that run as smoothly as possible. Tomorrow, we're really going to spend the day working in hopefully what's a return to a lot of what we've done in previous Allotrope Connect meetings. Over the last few years, we've moved everything online, and while that's worked really well, nothing really beats getting in the same room with folks and really having a great deep discussion on where we're going and what we're doing. And so tomorrow, really going to be working through a number of different sessions around how do we adopt Allotrope, how do we accelerate, the use of the different tools and techniques that we have here. And so that tomorrow will be for Allotrope members and APM members only. Today is a public session, so anyone here could attend, and it's great to see some familiar names online, checking out what's going on with Allotrope now. Day 3 then will be on moving Allotrope forward, and so this will be a combination of working group meetings, technical office hours, and the board of directors meeting for those who are board members.